Hi there, I am Sarah Colas. Welcome to the Dressing Up podcast, where we talk about all things bridal, dresses, and general dressing up topics. I love to encourage women to dress up while expressing their personal style with confidence on how to do so. Visit sarahcolas.com to book a bridal alterations fitting or even inquire about designing the custom couture bridal gown of your dreams. I'm so excited to talk to you about this next topic. Let's get started. Okay, I am not exaggerating. This is going to be one of my forever favorite podcast episodes. I am going to be interviewing Betty Smith here, who you're going to soon learn about her whole journey, but it is just so incredible. Some of you may remember when I had the Target bedsheet dress go viral on Instagram a few years back. And Betty was one of the people that just found it at just the right moment of her about to be engaged. And she went through this whole process of making the Target bedsheet dress for herself. And it's just so great. It's so great for so many reasons. She made the dress herself. She's from England, so she had this whole process of getting the Target bed sheets to her home and making it herself with her mother. She didn't previously sew before this. This is a mission that she was so determined to complete that she even taught herself how to sew, along with some family and friends that helped her. I'm not going to spoil too much. I should not tell you more about the story. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. You're going to love this.
Hello.
Yay! Hi, Betty.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Good morning. Well, I should say good afternoon to you with
Yes,
our
good
time
morning
changing.
to you.
Yeah, so where are you at in England?
I'm in London.
You're in London. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it is so fun to be talking to you.
It
Wow.
feels quite surreal, if I'm honest.
Yes, this is so exciting. Well, I am sure some of our listeners have already seen it, but we did a blog post together all
Yeah.
about your wedding dress, which was such a unique experience in so many ways. So I am really excited to chat through all the details with you right now. So thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
amazing. Well, thank you for having me.
So, first and foremost, this is Betty Smith. She is a UK bride whose wedding dress came from
It
Target
did.
bed sheets from America. And we're going to talk about how you discovered the gown and then all the way through creation of your beautiful wedding dress. So, first and foremost, I want to talk about how this all started with
Hmm.
your desire to have this dress as your
Yeah.
wedding gown. Can you talk me through that thought process?
Yeah, of course. So when Matthew and I got engaged, obviously I had been looking at wedding dresses before we were engaged anyway. Like the minute they come on my Instagram, I always think, well, that's a beautiful dress. And I wear a lot of like frilly, puffy sleeve stuff anyway, day to day. I was like, I want to wear a dress that feels like myself and my style, but feels really special. So there are a couple of like London bridal shops that I had had my eye on just from scrolling on Instagram, and some that I thought were really beautiful. But the thing that I always felt with wedding dresses, and I think a lot of people probably feel, is that I was a bit like, the dresses I'm seeing are beautiful, but I feel a little bit sad that lots of people will have that dress, or like I'm seeing it on my Instagram come up again a lot because lots of brides have bought this dress and then worn it. And that doesn't make it any less beautiful, but I just felt a little bit like it feels less like my dress, and like a beautiful dress for everyone, but not my dress. And I had been sending my mum and my sister these dresses from this London bridal shop, and they were like, yes, that is really beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just scrolling through Instagram one day, and one of your Instagram reels of the bedsheet dress came up, and I literally remember just going, oh my gosh. And I sent it to my mum and my sister. And obviously, I looked through your profile and I saw that you were based in the US and that it was like a custom gown and it was made from Target bed sheets. And I loved that it was made from bed sheets. I just thought that was one, what amazing fabric to turn into bed sheets. And I thought it was an amazing story. But I sent it to my mum and my sister, and I remember saying, oh no, I think this is the dress, but it's going to be difficult. Once I'd set my mind on that, I was still looking because in my head it was too big of a project. Like I couldn't come over to the US for it, and I just couldn't work out how to make that work. So it was sort of like, that is the absolute ideal dream, but I'm going to have to keep looking because I just can't see how we can make that work. And then again, like I just kept on looking on your Instagram, and you posted some behind the scenes of like when you did the shoot with the model that was wearing it. And you then did some videos of you putting the dress together for the first time. And I was just like, oh, I just couldn't get it out of my head at all. I said with my mum, and I was like, unless it is like an almost exact replica of this dress, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that out of my head. I had never sewn anything before. My mum had done textiles at A level, which is like college. And she just said, does she sell the pattern? Could we make it? And I didn't think you did sell the pattern because I'd only seen your Instagram. And then I looked on your website and I was like, oh my gosh, she does sell the pattern. And sort of from that moment, I was like, well, I've never sewn anything before, but why not it be my wedding dress to be the first thing? And it kind of spiraled from there.
That is such a fun journey and so unique. You know, you were thinking there's no way she sells the pattern. Like, what dress company sells the patterns for their dresses? So that I am so
Yeah,
glad all these really unique, obscure pieces all fell perfectly into place for you.
yeah,
You're really a prime example of why I started selling the patterns in the first place so that it could reach a broader amount of people. And you found a way to figure it out. So I am so happy about that.
it was
Let's
amazing.
Yeah, I am so glad. And I'm so glad that Reel did so well. I think I posted that in August of 2023 and you got engaged, was it in May?
I got engaged January of
Oh,
2024.
so this was
And
before. Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah, what I remember happening is that a couple of months after I got engaged, I saw your reel. And that's when like the idea sparked. Actually, now I think about it, originally we thought, well, we'll get someone else to make it. So I was looking at dressmakers in the UK and I'd sent your reel to them and I'd sent the pattern to them. And I was just like, do you think you could do this? And their whole thing was like, yeah, absolutely. We just need the fabric. And I was like, yes, that's in progress, trying to get that. And then it was just after having a conversation with a couple of dressmakers that my mum said, well, why don't we do it? So in April of 2024, I was in Florida on holiday and we had managed to order the fabric from a friend who was on holiday in America, then gave it to her friend who lived in America. And then that friend at some point in the year was going to fly back over to the UK because of like luggage allowance. And I think we'd bought like 4 sets of the king size bedding. So we're like, this is our one chance to get the fabric. And if we make mistakes, then we've just got to buy as much of it as we can. But obviously, when I got to Florida, I hadn't actually ever seen the fabric in person. I'd never touched it or like felt what it felt like. And then we were in Target one day and Matthew was there with us. I managed to like sneak away from him. I was like, oh, I'm just going to go and have a look at the other side of the shop. And luckily it's so huge. And we went and we found it. And I was with my mum and I was like, it feels such good quality. And it just was beautiful. And I was like, well, this is the right decision. And then I think it was when we got back from holiday that my mum was like, let's do it. Let's just make it. So May of 2024, my birthday, my mum bought me a sewing machine for my birthday and I started sewing. What was the first thing I made? Like little makeup bags or just like tiny things. And I was like, I need to try and do some practice because if I'm going to make a whole wedding dress, I better be able to at least sew a straight line. So yeah. And then finally the fabric got to London and my dad went and met this mutual friend of a friend of a friend who'd managed to get it over for us. And he picked it up and it felt very real. And then I think in November of 2024, we started cutting out the pattern pieces and we've got the pattern printed on these huge bits of paper. Like they were the biggest pattern pieces I've ever seen in my life for the skirt. And it took up like the whole of my parents' kitchen. It felt so surreal. I was like holding up the paper patterns, just like looking at the size of the gown going behind me. I was like, whoa, this is going to be massive, but in a really beautiful way.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe that whole journey. It's so wild. I am just so glad that all of this happened for you and how convenient that you were in the States and able to look at the sheets real quick.
Yeah,
But I don't think a lot of Americans realize this, but there is no Target in England. And I don't think there's any Target anywhere in Europe, right?
not that I know of. And we don't even really have anything like it. Target doesn't ship to the UK. So it really was a mission to get it over here.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like to get the fabric to your home?
So, although Target doesn't ship to the UK, we can still go on the website and browse. So, we managed to find the bed sheets. I only had your reel to go off. So like looking at the pattern and looking at the bed sheets online and going, I'm 99% sure that those are the ones. And then you obviously have to have a US address to post it to. So that was when a friend of my mum's who has an address in the US. So we sent it to her. And then we had been in America that year and we weren't planning to go back. None of my family traveled for work or anything. So then it was a mutual friend again who happened to be traveling for work. And she was able to get some of it in a suitcase. So it came over. And then another mutual friend at a later point in the year got the rest of it over. So I think it was between ordering it and it actually arriving at my parents' home, I think it was about 6 months wait of just being like, hopefully this fabric will arrive to us. And it did.
That is so funny, especially to think in 2024, 2025, like having that hard of a time shipping something to your home. Like that is wild to think that stuff still has to happen that way. So you shipped some of the stuff to your mom's friend's friend. How did it get from that person to then your friend that came from work?
Yeah. If I'm honest, I feel like my mum, bless her, took it on herself. She's like, I will get this fabric to the UK. I think it was the friend who had the address in America and the friend who actually eventually got it did know each other and they happened to be seeing each other. So that is how it made it to someone who was coming back to the UK.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of logistics.
It's a lot of logistics.
That is wild. Also, your mom was a huge key part in all of this, it sounds like. So we're very thankful for her. She bought you a sewing machine and then you learned how to sew. And am I correct that your wedding dress was the first dress you ever sewed?
So my mum bought me the sewing machine for my birthday in May of 2024. Yeah, I'd never sewn anything. So I started making tiny little makeup bags and like a pillowcase or something like that. And my mum had sewn before and she had made dresses. Like 30 years ago, she'd made dresses and she'd sewn little bits and bobs for us as kids. And my wedding dress wasn't the first dress I sewed. I sewed a really bad, oversized, just this massive dress. And I just thought I should try it one. And it had buttonholes in it. So it was my first time doing buttonholes. And I put it on and like, I could wear it, but now I look back on it, I'm like, that dress is a mess. It just was like so huge and the seams are all completely wonky. And the dress after that I made was my wedding dress. So thank goodness for my mum, because I think if it was just me doing that dress, I don't know what it would have looked like, but it wouldn't have looked like the special wedding dress that it did end up being.
Yes, absolutely. So your mom gifted you the sewing machine with the full intent, like she gave you the sewing machine in order to do this whole project, but your fiance, Matthew, had no idea, right?
He had no idea. He knew I got a sewing machine. He knew that I was just starting to sew. And we had intended anyway for our wedding to do lots of stuff DIY. One of the things that my mum and I were going to make was a whole load of bunting to go around the garden. So poor Matthew, like every spare moment I had, I'd be like, oh, there's a lot of bunting to make, so I'm going back over to mum's to make some more bunting. And he'd be like, okay. And then sometimes we would do bunting because there was a lot of bunting to make, but the majority of those bunting sewing sessions were cutting out the pattern, doing a practice version of the dress, and then obviously doing the actual dress.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so great. How fun. And then kind of bouncing off that topic a little more, I want to talk about actually sewing the gowns. So you get the patterns from me. I make the patterns like semi-custom to your measurements, send them off to you electronically. You have the patterns printed, and then you're basically going to start sewing from there. So you've got the fabric, you've got the patterns, you started sewing practice, and then tell us about next steps from there.
So we started off by getting some just practice fabric, some cheap cotton that had flowers on it. More so, I would have sewn it out of anything, but my mum wanted, it was like, it might as well be pretty. So we got some nice pink flowery fabric and we cut out all the pattern pieces for this practice dress. We hadn't at that point thought about the organza lining, which you had in yours. So this first practice version was literally just cotton. And it went okay, the making of it. I mean, it's a lot of gathers on the skirt. So like doing all those gathers for the first time was a challenge for me. And like working out the quality of thread even was something new for me, like being able to pull the thread through and it not have it snap. and we made the bodice, and we just made the bodice from the pattern pieces that were to my measurements. But life happens, and my weight had fluctuated and my size had fluctuated, so like it fitted nicely, but it sat a bit low on my waist and around my breast area. It was a little bit baggy and the shoulders were a little bit slippy, so like we could see the vision, but we just thought when we do the real thing, we just want it to be like a little bit extra. And I wanted my wedding dress to feel like my wedding dress and to feel really special. So that's when we looked again at your dress and looked through your pattern in pieces and on the website and stuff. And that's when we saw that you were talking about like the organza lining and stuff like that. And that's when we thought a little bit more into, oh, okay, so step it up a level to looking like a gown. What can we do? And so, yeah, we were in touch with you a lot, and you were super helpful in explaining to us what organza lining is, and that it's really important that it's silk organza or silk satin organza. And again, this was all completely new terms to me. So it was really useful having you to be able to ask you all these questions. And then, yeah, slowly the pieces started coming together of how to turn it from just like any cotton huge dress into a custom gown.
Yeah, absolutely. So the initial mock dress that you made out of that pinkish floral fabric, that didn't have underlining in it, right?
Didn't have any
Which is
underlining
totally
on
fine
it.
because you're doing it more so
Yeah.
for fit. So that's
Yes.
perfect. Don't waste your money on that.
Yeah.
And then where did you end up buying the silk satin organza from?
So I don't know if this is a US versus a UK thing, but silk satin organza was really hard to get a hold of. There's a lot of silk organza, but silk satin especially, it was quite hard to find. And I had found some silk satin organza from like a dead stock warehouse, but it was grey. Obviously, you can't really see it through the sheets, but I don't want my dress to like ruffle up whilst I'm dancing and to just be grey. And we ended up finding it from, I can't remember the name of the company, but like a huge warehouse that stocks other sewing shops, and they happened to have some silk satin organza. So yeah, thankfully we found that and we ordered it.
So that was another hunt. Your
And it
mom's
was
like,
another
oh,
hunt.
not this again.
My poor mum. I know.
I would agree. Silk satin organza is typically harder to find than silk organza. I do happen to know where to order it from, so I don't really think about that being a challenge, but I would agree that most fabric shops have a lot of silk organza, not a lot of silk satin organza. But the silk satin organza definitely has a much different weight and body to it than the silk organza. You totally could have done the silk organza, but silk satin organza just gives that like crazy awesome amount of billowiness, that structure without being stiff, and it's just beautiful.
It really transformed the gown. I mean, even the bodice pieces having the silk satin underneath it, like I can't think of the right words to describe it, but it just makes it look really lush and fitted and just really smooth. And the fabric for the bed sheets is lovely, but they are bed sheets. So it definitely made it feel more like a wedding dress material rather than just bed sheets.
And you know what? That's exactly what I was thinking when I was making the dress originally. I'm like, I don't want this to look like bed sheets. So like, let's structure it up. So it's fun that we had that same thought. Your mom and you were working greatly on this dress together, but it sounds like you also had a friend that helped you with some things. And how did she come into play?
So after we had made the mock dress, it like fitted me ish, but not to the extent that I wanted a wedding dress to fit. My mum thought of her friend Sophie, who they have been friends for years and years and years and years and years. Whenever we see Sophie, like maybe once or twice a year, she's always wearing these beautiful dresses and she's always made them. And she like is very much a home sewer. She doesn't do it for work, but she's just very good at it and really enjoys it. We asked Sophie whether she would be happy just to come round, just to give some advice on how we could get it to fit better. And like the minute she stepped in to my mum's house and like we'd had a 30-minute chat with her, my mum and I were both like, Sophie needs to come on board. We can't do this without Sophie.
We need to hire her
and
in.
Honestly, she was incredible. So she had done some pattern courses and adjusting patterns. So she really knew the technical side to it. She was able to take your pattern pieces and grade them and make them really fit my bodice. And she just came up with some little extra things that I'm sure you had in your original gown that I wanted in mind to just make it that bit extra special. Stuff that I had never heard of, like ways to make the waist feel really secure, little straps in the shoulders to keep my bra straps in place. She came up with the idea to like having a little bit of organza in the shoulders to keep the volume of the puff shoulders and stuff. And I sort of hate to think what the dress might have looked like if Sophie hadn't come in. She was the one who really kept on like saying to me, it is really fun and exciting that you're making it, but it should still be really special and look like a dressmaker has made it and look like Sarah's gown rather than just like the best copy of it you can do. So yeah, she came in with all those tips and tricks and really helped to make it the dress that it was.
Oh, I'm really thankful for her. Thank you, Sophie, if you're listening.
Yes, Sophie.
That is really important. Those are the kinds of things that you really just don't know and can't quite figure out as a beginner sewer. So that was
Yeah.
really awesome. And it was probably nice for her too. And I hope she's agreeing with this, that she kind of got to do that like last 5%, but you and your mom did like all the like
Yeah.
high labor type of tasks.
Yes.
So it was probably
Yeah.
really fun for everyone to like do their little part that they could contribute to.
Yeah. It was definitely a big team effort.
And so tell us about where this gown was being made at.
So this was all being made at my parents' house in London. So I grew up in London. My parents still have the home that I grew up in. So that's in Clapham, which is like in southwest London. And I live just a little bit closer to the river. That was all there. And we have a tiny little like office upstairs, which is very much like turned into a storagey space. So when we weren't making it, it was all being hidden up in there because Matthew comes round to my parents' house a lot and it couldn't just be out. And there were, I would say, maybe one or two times where I had been round and was making it. And then, like, we got to the end of the session, we'd packed it all away and we had this big basket that was in. And we just put the basket in, like, the living room. And then Matthew and I came round a few days later. And as we walked in, I just turned and saw that it was still sitting there. So my mum and sister and I would all look at each other across the room and I'd be like, that needs to move. Can someone take that out? It was quite difficult to hide it completely from Matthew. But yeah, my parents' house became the hub for all the sewing, bunting, and for the dress. It all was happening there.
And this was mostly in their kitchen too. So you were like
Yeah,
using their kitchen table, kitchen counters.
it exploded. I can't remember some of the pictures on the blog, but like it was all the pattern pieces like hanging on my parents' cabinets. I don't know how you make that dress if you don't have the space because the skirt is so amazingly big. But just sewing it, like my mum luckily did have like an extra tabletop to put on top of the table just because of her work. But we had to like fully turn the kitchen into a sewing zone. And we just were like, sorry, you can't use the kitchen today. There's no space for anyone else to be in here.
Oh, gosh, I love your story so much. So my assistant Abigail really put your blog
Mhm.
post together and she gathered all these photos and she's like, Sarah, by the way, I'm working on this blog post and like it's going to be amazing. Like you're going to love this. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited." So it's really fun for me to be able to like read the final blog post from start to finish like with fresh eyes and like
Mm.
read the whole story. And I was literally crying because I was like, this is
Oh,
so beautiful and like the impact that I had on someone all the way across the world and their wedding dress and sewing it and making it and all these things.
yeah,
And one thing that I also really related to is the fact that you made your wedding dress in your parents' home, which is something I did too. So before we were
yeah,
married, my now husband and I, we didn't live together. I lived at my parents' house. So I was making my wedding dress there and like there were so many images that I'm like, "Oh, I did that too." Like I can feel that so much. I have it pulled up on my screen right now, seeing these images of you in your kitchen with your mom and she's like holding the dress in the back.
yeah.
And then especially the ones of your dog and cat like sitting on the I'm like I had that too. Like my cat Leo was right there
Yeah,
sitting on everything as I was working on it. It's just like it's such a unique experience that I feel like so few people have. Actually, this used to be very normal like 100 years ago plus. But you and I kind of have this shared experience of making your wedding dress in your home, which is so
yeah.
special.
Looking back on it now, like it just wouldn't have felt as special not doing it this way. And those memories and those photos of like my childhood animals and like my pets just being all over the fabric and being in the way and stuff, like I will never forget that. And having that time with my mum and my sister and Sophie and like other family members who dripped in and out as we were making it, like it's a really special shared experience between all of us that I got to have.
And the most mind-blowing thing of it too is something I just briefly mentioned. Like this used to be so normal historically Like, it used to be normal to make your own wedding dress, and it used to be normal to have your mom help you and your sister and your
Mm,
friends. So it's kind of like going back in time a little bit, which I think is
yeah.
cool. But something so rare now. So how amazing
Mm,
that you got to experience that. It's truly a one of a kind gown. It was made for you, it was fit for you. You kind of got to go through the whole journey as opposed to just like going to a store and like signing off on buying something and then it's that's it.
yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
When did you complete it? Like, how close to the wedding was the dress done?
So the skirt was the first thing that we had put all the skirt together. You'll enjoy that the first time we cut out the right side of the dress twice. So we were
Oh,
like, ah.
no.
But that's why we got all the extra fabric. So we then cut out the other side of the dress. So the skirt all got put together, and I would say that was finished by like February of 2025. And we were getting married in August. And we just wanted to make sure, obviously, once the bodice was attached to it, although we had Sophie helping, who was very, very good, I really was anxious about making the bodice and then me putting it on 2 months later or 3 months later and it not fitting, whether that's because my weight has fluctuated, I was in a different part of my cycle or whatever. So we were like, we did know that we were going to leave it a bit closer to the time, as if we were going to someone doing alterations, but it was ourselves. So I'd say like 2 months before, we cut out the final pattern pieces of the bodice and put it all together. And I work full time and I work in theatre in the West End. So my schedule compared to my mum's is completely different. My mum works a 9 to 5 job and I work a 5 to 11 p.m. job. So it was hard to find those pockets of time. So once a week, we'd manage to find time to do it. And then Sophie would come down every month or so and help. And then about a week and a half before the wedding, the bodice was attached to the skirt and it was like I could put it on for the first time and the sleeves were on and the zip was in and we did the hem and everything. So practically it was a finished dress, but there were just like those little extra bits that we wanted to do, like putting the elastic in the shoulders to hold my bra straps and putting in like hanging loops in the waist so that it wasn't being weighed down by the shoulders. And we decided to do some covered buttons. We were all like, oh, that is a lot of work, but we decided. So we cut it quite close to the wire. And I remember the last time I saw my dress at my parents' house was like a week before the wedding. And I had to go to work. And I just left my mum and Sophie there sewing on those last buttons. And I was like, thank you, I couldn't do this without you, but I've got to go to work. So they stitched the last few bits. And then it wasn't until I arrived at my grandparents' house like 2 days before the wedding where I just put it on one more time and my mum like sewed the last bits of elastic in and then it was ready. So probably too close to the wire, but it was quite fun doing the last little bits with my granny there as well.
That sounds very on brand for a sewer's experience of like down to
Yeah.
the very last second. Because if you have the time, you're going to use it. If you ran out of time, you
Hmm.
wouldn't have done the covered buttons. You know, like
Exactly.
you added things on that caused it to be very close,
Yeah.
which is something I
Yeah.
do too. Like, oh, I have time. Let me do this change
Yeah.
and do this and do this. So
Yeah.
that sounds right on point. Where is your grandparents' house, by the way?
So that's in the New Forest, which is like southwest England. It's like a big area in Hampshire, lots of woods, and my grandparents are in like part of this thing called the New Forest. So it's a cottage in the middle of loads of woodlands, and they have sheep and there were ponies there. So like it was very, very cottagey vibes. So even more so when I saw your dress and like all those little flowers and the style of it just fit my grandparents' house so well. And my grandparents' house is white and blue. Like that, it's always been a white house with blue window frames. And so the dress being white and blue as well, it was almost impossible for it not to be my wedding dress.
Wow. Okay. So you had the wedding there. I mean, you're setting the scene perfectly. That just sounds absolutely gorgeous. And you get there and you put the dress on your wedding day. How did
Mhm.
you feel putting it on in that moment?
It was amazing. It felt like we did it. It felt really amazing that we'd done it. And especially then when like my sister put on her bridesmaid dress and we'd made like a little sash out of the same material so that she and my two little cousins had a bit of the material in it. And seeing all of us together in my grandparents' house, like with my mum and my sister, it was really amazing and like emotional and I felt really beautiful and just like whoa, it was incredible and felt really like a huge achievement.
Yeah. Wow. So, for our listeners listening to the podcast right now, you really need to go in and look at her blog post on my website. It has so many photos of basically everything we've talked about. And I am looking right now at some photos of you with your sister and
Yeah.
the flower girl and how you incorporated those fabrics into their gowns.
Hmm.
Something you could never do unless you were actually making your own dress and you can like throw in these little bits
Yeah.
everywhere. So that looks really cool. Did Matthew know about those sashes? Like, is it possible that he kind of like coordinated because those fabrics were included in other parts of the wedding that he already knew about, just didn't know it was your actual wedding dress as well?
Mm. No. So Matthew hadn't seen the fabric at all. I didn't make my sister's dress, but my little bridesmaids, who were 2 and 5, I made their little dresses. And so he knew that they were wearing white. That threw him off a little bit because he was like, if they're wearing white, are you not wearing white? And I just didn't answer that question. So Matthew's suit ended up being baby blue as well, like almost the exact blue as the flowers. And I think because of my grandparents' house being white and blue, we obviously both had the same vision of like that would work really well. And basically, Matthew very much felt like, well, if I can't see your dress, then you don't know what I'm wearing. So I had no idea what color his suit was or what he was wearing, and he had no idea what I was wearing. So it was really only when I saw him at the end of the aisle that we were both a bit like, oh my gosh, we really are coordinated just out of chance. That was really fun.
Wow. That is quite wild that you both didn't plan
Mhm.
that because those colors look really good together. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, another little detail that you did for the wedding, you embroidered your shoes, your Converse shoes. That sounds amazing as well. Did you do embroidery before this as well?
I'm one of those people that I pick up a craft every other week. I love it. So I had embroidered before, but actually those shoes, I got someone else to embroider them because I just thought if I'm making my wedding dress, I need to pass the crafting to someone else for the other things. I don't wear heels at all. I'm always wearing trainers or Crocs or like just very, very comfortable flat shoes. And I didn't want to change that. So the baby blue Converse that I found online were perfect for it, but I just felt a little bit like I don't want them just to be Converse. So yeah, someone embroidered them from me, someone I found on Etsy. So it was nice doing like another smaller business as well.
Yeah.
And they did my shoes.
Another personalized element.
Yeah.
That is so nice. Did it feel like because you were so busy working on all these things in regards to what you were wearing, did it feel like the actual planning of the wedding kind of took a little bit of a backseat? Because that's how it felt for me when I was making my dress. I'm like, the wedding stuff is easy. I'm like focused on my dress.
Yeah. I'm a very organized person anyway. Like my job is basically organization for theatre in a very minimal way. So planning the wedding actually felt quite easy. We sort of knew what we wanted. It was very, very low key. And because we were lucky enough to like have it at my grandparents' house, the only sort of extra things we needed to do was like a teepee and a barbecue and some drinks. And like once those things are ticked off, you can do that well in advance. So like once those things were done, it was like, well, the next biggest thing is the wedding dress. So yeah, after those booked, it was sort of like I need to get those things done so my head can just focus on the dress.
Oh my goodness. Actually, can you tell us a little bit? Because I know there's going to be a lot of Americans listening to this as well. And we're already just adoring your accent, by the way. But tell us what it's like living where you are. What are you doing for work? Your job sounds super unique and fun. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I grew up in London, so I don't really know any different. But so I work in the West End and I work backstage in a theatre. So I'm a stage manager. So it's sort of the organising backstage and all the props in the show. I help move them around and stuff like that. And Matthew also works backstage in theatre and he works in lighting. And we both have worked up, but we are both now like in the West End, sort of a 20-second walk away from each other in terms of different theatres. The West End is really small, like all the theatres are just crammed into the middle of London. So it's really exciting being there. I love what I do for work, and I think part of my job is like crafting props and bits of scenery and stuff like that. So I've always had that craftiness in me, and it's come into my work. So it sort of felt like very natural to put that into my wedding as well.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I've been to London once. We saw Mamma Mia while we were there. It was
Yes.
wonderful.
So I
And
work just across the road from Mamma Mia. Yeah, Mamma Mia is the Novello Theatre, and then I work at the Duchess Theatre, which is just across where the play that goes wrong is on at.
Oh, that is so cool. Do you know the story at all of me making my wedding dress? Because it actually involved England. We have so many
I
like
don't know your story,
full
actually. No.
circle things. So for my wedding dress, I really wanted to do what is called tambour bead embroidery. It's a very like specific type of craft that not a lot of people know how to do. I couldn't find anyone to teach me, and then I finally found this woman online, and one thing led to another, and she's like, yeah, I'll teach you, like I actually do this sometimes. And I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. Just where are you located? Assuming she's at least somewhere in America. And she responds back, I'm in Dover. And I had to Google where Dover was. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, shoot. Which
Oh,
I feel like is the same feeling you had when you saw the dress on my Instagram,
yeah.
the video. So we packed up and went to London and then drove down to Dover. Made it a vacation, of course, since we're already over there.
Yeah.
So went to the Isle of Wight too and a couple other
Yeah.
places. So it was really, really beautiful. But yeah, my wedding dress brought me to England, and her name is Jan. She lives in Dover and she's incredible at her craft. She said she did a lot of beading in her day for like the London Ballet and things like that. It
Mm,
just sounded so amazing. So it was an absolutely beautiful trip. But of course, while I was in London, I went fabric shopping. So I don't know if
hmm
you know of the fabric store Joel and Sons, but that one would be like my favorite fabric shop of all time, actually. So I'm very jealous you're so close to it. It has some really awesome stuff. So
Where is that? Do you
I
remember?
don't know. Joel and Sons. The thing about London that I'm sure you know, but I've gone fabric shopping and I've traveled a lot. Like I've gone fabric shopping all around, and I always think of London as like the place that cares about quality. Like you guys
Mm,
actually care about quality. There's other places in the world and especially in the US that has lost that. But that's
mm.
why I liked that fabric shop so much, because it was all good fabric, which is hard to find. So it was good.
Yeah. I sort of had no idea about fabric shopping really at all. Like my mum
Mhm.
did sew a bit growing up, so there were like one or two very small fabric shops that I knew of. But yeah, it was only when making the dress and sort of then thinking about it more that I did explore some of the fabric shops in London. I think there are some quite specific expensive ones in central London, but yeah, like Joel and Sons is a bit further out
Okay.
west, northwest, and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a community that sort of you don't realize is there unless you tap into it. And then
Yeah.
there is a lot of fabric shops out there.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for visiting London? If we have some listeners that are going to be visiting London, do you have any like specific places to go? Just any tips for being there?
I'm biased because I work in theatre, but I would definitely say come to the West End and see a show. There are so many shows you can see, and there's a really good app called Today Tips, which is today and then TIXS. And they have like on the day raffles to get tickets, but also like there are lots of ticket booths, and you can also just walk into any box office and see what tickets you can get on the day. On all the road signs, it's called Theatreland because it is literally this tiny area of London where all the theatres are. So you can spend the day just walking around, seeing what shows are out there, and then pick one. And Covent Garden, which is like the hub of where all those theatres, sort of the middle of it is Covent Garden, is a huge piazza, and there's lots of really good food there and little shops. And you're really near like Big Ben and the London Eye and stuff. I think the good thing about London is it's actually quite small. It's really concentrated, and you can walk between the West End, where all the theatres are, and Buckingham Palace are like a 15-minute walk from each other. So it is tiny. So get anywhere into the centre and you can walk everywhere and just see everything. But yeah, I would say definitely see a show if you can.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Betty, for sitting down with me and chatting through everything and for putting so much effort into your wedding dress and letting me play a small part in that. I appreciate that so much. Do you have just any general advice for brides since you just went through this whole big experience of getting
Mm.
married?
My biggest piece of advice was like, make sure your wedding day is what you want it to be. And I felt it a lot. There's a real pressure from like life to make it like this big, exciting, huge day. And therefore it should feel like the most special, and there are lots of traditions that have been around for ages that lots of people that you feel like you should do, or like everyone has a seating plan and everyone has like an order of the day and stuff. And actually Matthew and I, like, we started looking at all of that because it just felt like the right thing to do. Well, this is what everyone does, so we'll look at it. And it was only when we really thought about, well, actually, what do we want, that we realized there were bits of it that we don't really mind not having a huge cake. We really love, they're called Colin the Caterpillar cakes, which I think are a very British thing, but like it's this literally a chocolate caterpillar with Smarties all over it that I had growing up. We were like, well, we really like those cakes, so why wouldn't we just have a cake that we like rather than a big cake? And we like small social gatherings, so we only had 35 people because why wouldn't we? And it is a really important day, and it's, you know, one that we'll always think back and look on, and we didn't want to have any regrets. And it was really hard telling friends and family, or like, oh, we're not doing that because we don't want to do that. But it was absolutely the right decision. And I don't have anyone looking back on it going, oh, I wish you did a cake cutting, or I wish you had a DJ rather than just a playlist, because in the end, it was a special day because Matthew and I were so happy with what it was. So yeah, I think just really push for it being exactly what you want it to be, and don't feel like you have to do the things you see online, because actually those things don't matter. What you want is what matters.
Well said. Well said. Absolutely. What did
Yeah,
Matthew think of your dress?
he loved my dress. He really did. And when I was saying to him, like, what do you think it will be like? He said, oh, I think you'll have puffy shoulders of some sort, because I always wear puffy shoulders. And he was right. And obviously, I hadn't told him that I was making it. And it felt sort of not right to like meet him at the end of the aisle and just, you don't have really time to have a chat. The service is happening and you're there to get married. So it's really only after the service, which I was like, I made my dress. He was really blown away. And yeah, it was really special. And the fact that we were both wearing the same colour was really fun. Just after the ceremony, we just walked around the churchyard a little bit, and that was really special because the day is really busy and there's loads of people and like things to do and places to be. So having those like 5 minutes to just almost debrief and be like, I did this, and oh, I got my suit from this, and it was really nice to have that moment.
He was probably like, wait, what? What happened?
Yeah,
America? This dress
yeah,
you found
yeah,
online? Like, what?
yeah.
Did you do a honeymoon?
We haven't done like our proper honeymoon yet. I think we're going to go to Italy, but just with holiday days and stuff like that, we weren't able to make it work. But we did go away 3 days after our wedding just to a little shepherd's hut up north, like further north in England.
Uh-huh.
And we just had 3 days of like just being in the woods in a cabin and just being able to do all that catching up, which you don't always have time to do on the day.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about, is if you just like talked his ear off about like all the things about making your
Yes.
honeymoon. So that's good that you got some time alone to talk about everything and enjoy being married. It's
Yeah.
so funny that you're saying going to Italy for your honeymoon, because to us that would be like a huge thing. And that's like going anywhere in Europe is like an absolutely insanely wonderful honeymoon. Have you found that a lot of your friends honeymoon in Europe as well? Or does anyone go elsewhere?
I actually think the majority of friends that I know that have got married go further afield. They're either going to Thailand or to the Maldives, or like lots of people going to America and doing a road trip around America. I think the rest of Europe really isn't too far from the UK. A flight to Italy is maybe 3 or 4 hours. So I think a lot of people actually in the UK see those as like holiday destinations, and therefore like your honeymoon should be somewhere bigger. But Matthew and I have never been to Italy, and we just love food, so we just want to go and have really good food for a couple of days. And yeah, so that's why we think we're going to do Italy.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds wonderful. Did you have a bridal shower? I'm curious what your traditions are for events leading up to the wedding.
So again, Matthew and I, because we weren't sort of super bothered about doing the lots of traditions.
Yes.
So normally in the UK, you would have a hen party. I would have a hen party, and then Matthew would have a stag night or a stag do. For me, I wasn't really interested in that. I'm not a big partier. And in the UK, like a hen night is like going out clubbing or going out and drinking a lot. And it's a lot of like games and stuff. And that's just not who I am. So I originally said to my mum and my sister, like, I'm not bothered about that. I don't really want that. But then my sister, she did surprise me. She did a very very low key hen day where it was just me and like 8 friends and my mom, my sister, and we made sushi and we like did some crafting, and it was very, very calm and low key. And then Matthew just did a pub quiz with his friends and some of his family. But people do big hen weekends. Like lots of people go to Europe for a couple of days because they can. Or my friend is getting married later this year and she's doing a couple of nights away, like in the countryside. Lots of people do. Lots of people have engagement parties just after they get engaged. But again, Matthew and I weren't super bothered about doing that, so we didn't. I think for a lot of people, actually, when they're getting married, lots of people, because the weather is so rubbish in the UK on the whole, will have their weddings abroad. So their wedding does turn into like a 3-day event, and they'll go somewhere hot because they want the guaranteed sun.
It sounds like you had really nice weather on your wedding day, huh?
We got really lucky with the weather. We really, really did. Yeah, it was a really perfect mix of like being very sunny and warm, but not really hot, although it never gets really hot. A lot of our wedding planning was sort of making a backup plan for, well, if there's rain, then we'll just have to do everything inside the tent. And Matthew and I had to tell each other a lot, like, it will still be lovely if there's no sun. But deep down, we were like, please be sun.
Yeah, and after all that work you put into it, I'm so glad you got these gorgeous photos outside. Oh, well, very good, Betty. Thank you so much. I just appreciate you so much, and I hope that our listeners have enjoyed this conversation, as I'm sure they will.
Honestly. And I'm so grateful, like, to you for creating that dress and putting it on your Instagram, but also like I don't know any other dress designer who then sells their patterns, because you could make a lot of money and a lot of success from just making your dresses, but I wouldn't have been able to do that because I can't travel to you. The amount of times that you do need to be with your alterations person or your dress designer. And then again, like with the pattern, my mum and I emailed you so many times with questions like, have we cut out the right number of pattern pieces? And what do you do about this? And you were always so happy to answer our questions. And like, it really felt like you and Abigail were really excited for me. And I had like another little hype team across the pond. So it was really nice having you as part of that.
Yes, 100%. I totally was. When I got those emails, I'm like, oh my God, they're actually making it. Like, yes, please, I want to answer this. I was so excited. I totally agree with everything you said. I am a huge fan of encouraging other people to learn how to sew, to keep sewing. So that's why I do like selling the patterns, because I don't want to become just another manufacturer that makes gowns for super cheap overseas. I would so much rather do what I love to do in person and then encourage other people to do the same wherever you are. So you were exactly who I was thinking of when I started off this pattern. So I'm so glad. All right, Betty, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Please stay in touch.
Yes, thank you so much.
Bye. Isn't that just a fabulous story? I am so glad Betty hopped on and did this podcast with us. I want to mention a few things. After we finished recording, she mentioned that with extra fabric from the Target bed sheets, she's going to be making an anniversary dress because she was considering cutting the dress shorter so that she could wear it over and over again for every anniversary. But after so much effort put into actually making her wedding dress, she does not want to chop it up any further. So she's going to start fresh and make a really fun dress for her to wear for her anniversaries. And I do want to mention a couple things. As you heard throughout the podcast, I do sell a lot of patterns on the website. So if you're a seamstress, or if you're someone like Betty that wants to become a seamstress, maybe you can buy these semi-custom patterns through my website. They are not quite like normal other sewing patterns. These are semi-custom sizes. So basically what happens is I take the patterns that I have previously created. Let's just say, for example, this green dress behind me, I wore that as a bridesmaid dress to my sister's wedding. I would take those patterns and tweak them to your measurements. So you would purchase the pattern and then email us your bust, waist, and hip measurements, and then I'll tweak the patterns and then send them electronically back to you. I do have advice and tips, instructions how to get the patterns printed, but I do not have instructions for how to sew the garments. I am a busy woman and I run this whole business here in person, so that's my main focus. The patterns is more of a secondary type of thing. I mean, it'd be a lot of time required to make instructions on how to sew them together, but
But I mean, honestly, even if you're a beginner seamstress, Betty was able to figure it out. So you at least have the pattern shapes. And then if you have questions about sewing along the way, like more specific, smaller questions, I can totally answer those over email for you. Betty and I went back and forth quite a bit, her asking questions and how to put things together. And then if you are a bride interested in this dress and you're not living in the States, please ask me to help you somehow get these bed sheets to you. I can definitely help with that. So I know Betty went through a whole long process on how to get these bed sheets to her home. So I would be willing to help with that. And by the way, she mentioned that she bought 4 sets of king-sized bed sheets. And I talked with her again. She said she could have used just 3. But herself and myself, we recommend you go ahead and get the 4 so that if you mess up, then you have that backup. So we don't know how long Target is going to continue selling these bed sheets. So if there's even like an inkling of you wanting to somehow have this dress made or make this dress yourself at some point in the future, recommend at least just getting the bed sheets for now. And then Betty also mentioned how she wants to put these bed sheets on her bed as well. So I would say if you want to do that, then you'll need 5 sets. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I know I did. It is such an incredible story. So if there's other stories like this that I don't know about where you bought patterns for me, let me know. I'd love to talk to you. One last thing. I want to thank Betty's family so much. Thank you to Betty's mom, Emma, and thank you to Sophie for helping her make this dress. This whole gown could not have come together as beautifully as it did without you. So I feel very strongly that this was such a team effort. So thank you all so much for putting such hard work into this. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode has allowed you to approach the world with greater confidence in your own personal style. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out through email or the inquiry form on the website. I hope you are all ready to go and get dressed up. I look forward to sharing more dressing up tips with you in future episodes. Thanks so much.